to all of my lovely listeners. I know it has been a while since I have done an episode. Um, if you all probably do or don't know, I don't do episodes unless I'm inspired to talk about something. And here lately, there hasn't been a whole lot of stuff that has popped into my head that I feel like is worthy of being talked about. And I think that there has been a lot that's been going on, but I just haven't really felt like I should talk about it. There's a whole bonnet situation with Monique that when she posted a video last weekend talking about black women and how they um, shouldn't come out of the house in bonnets and slippers, and it's just like, okay, but when you're at the airport, what else are you supposed to wear? When you're going out to the grocery store, what else are you supposed to wear? Like, I'm not about to. Of course, I'm not going to go to a job interview in a bonnet and slippers and a robe and whatnot. But if I'm going to go out, and if I'm going to just run somewhere really quick, there's no need for me to get dressed up. So, but I don't care to talk about that because there are more pressing issues to talk about. One of them being mental health and this new era, I guess you would call it, of mental health awareness that we're entering into. And this all starts with like Gen Z. People may say that we are sensitive. People may say that we are the softest generation, but I don't think that that's what that is. I myself am a Gen Zer, although sometimes I identify with millennials because there are certain things that I experienced that millennials experienced as well. Like there are just certain, I don't know. I just consider myself a millennial sometimes because I don't always identify with the values that Gen Z has. But anyway, nonetheless, what made me want to talk about it was Naomi Osaka. She's one of the highest played, if not highest paid tennis players in tennis, female tennis players, I think. But I know she's the highest paid. I'm just not sure if it's for male or female, but she's one of the highest paid tennis players in the sport today. And we remember her back in 2018. She beat Serena Williams to win her first Grand Slam title. I believe it was at the French Open, which is a center of which has been at the center of like the conversation surrounding her at this current moment. So Naomi Osaka decided that instead of putting the game first, she was going to put herself first, and she was going to take a break for her mental health. And she decided to do this, I think, last week. And the officials at the French Open, weren't very happy about it. And also Pierce Morgan, who seems to love black women and who seems to like have this obsession with them, had something to say about it. But I don't give a fuck about what he had to say because what he's saying or what he had to say is irrelevant, anyways. So she talked about that she mentioned that she had been struggling with depression for a good like since 2018, so for 3 years at least. And she said that it came from the media bullying her and asking her certain questions. And, Venus and Serena Williams, they got the same type of backlash. But with them, it was, they knew how to handle it. And I'm not saying that she didn't know how, and I'm not trying to say that her home life is the reason why Naomi Osaka wasn't able to deal with the critics, because you can have the best home life in the world, but everybody has their breaking point. Everybody has a point where they just get tired and they don't want to have to deal with bullies. They don't want to have to deal with people being a bully towards them. That's not something that any person, no matter who you are, should ever have to deal with. And she decided that she wasn't going to deal with it. She decided she would get her mental health in check. Because in the way I look at it, the way I view the situation, the French Open, the officials at the French Open, or whoever decided, that they would go against her, y'all are assholes and y'all are out of touch, and you need to hire some people who are more in tune with the times and who could have responded to this a little bit better, because That was a bunch of bullshit. You decided you would fine this young woman for not speaking to the media, for not going around the very people who caused her mental health to probably be in a worse state than what it is already. It is tough. Like, it's really, really tough being a public figure, being the world's greatest athlete, world's greatest actor, musician, whatever. I understand why a lot of these celebrities turn to the substances that they turn to, because how else are they supposed to stay sane? How else are they supposed to give us their best if they're mental if mentally they're not there, if mentally they're not ready, if mentally they can't even get themselves into the spirit, if they can't get themselves into the headspace to even perform, to give us the show that we want, that we come to them to see. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, I understand why a lot of these people take themselves out, why a lot of these people unalive themselves, why a lot of people turn to the substances they turn to. I understand it. I understand why a lot of people decide that this isn't what I thought it was going to be. I don't want to do this anymore. I understand why Britney Spears shaved her head. I get it, because the media, the fans, we demand a lot, you know what I'm saying? And we can be bullies. We can really forget that these are real human beings. And we can forget that, these people actually have to go home, and they're actually going to have some time to sit down and reflect on everything that happened to them today, or whatever day. Whenever they get some time to sit down, they're going to reflect on everything that has happened to them thus far. And a negative comment or a bad experience that they had, or a bad encounter that they had with a person, could be the one thing that they think about. It could be the one thing that sticks out to them. And we don't think about that. We don't take that into consideration, because we feel like they have money and they have all the resources in the world. They have no reason to be sad about anything. They don't have a reason to worry. They have no stress, no nothing. But they do. In fact, they probably have more of it because of the fact that they have money. That means they have to pay more people. That means that in order for them to keep the money flowing in so they can pay people, they have to take on more jobs. They have to do more roles. They have to make sure that they're touring, that the tickets sell for their touring, and that they're putting on the best show that they possibly can put on. That their movies are going to make enough money in the box office to where they can still afford to live and pay their bills, and also pay others so that they can pay their bills as well, if that makes any sense. Like, it's a lot of stress. But I said all that to say, like, Gen Z, my generation, we are becoming very much emotionally aware. And I feel like there's a lot of things that come into play that cause us to even be this emotionally aware, as emotionally aware as we are. I don't know any other generation who had to go through as many school shootings and lockdown drills as we did. I don't know any other generation who has had to grow up in an era that just this in a I don't know any other generation that had to grow up in an area where everything was on the internet. I mean, the internet exploded. Once I know MySpace was a thing, but once Facebook burst onto the scene, it was over with. Like, the internet really kind of exploded after that. Then we started to be able to carry that stuff in our pockets. We started to be able to get cell phones like that would connect to the internet. We got iPhones. We got iPods and iPads and all that kind of stuff. So now we're able to be mobile. Now we're able to view this stuff wherever, whenever we want. And then Instagram came about. Twitter became a big thing. Snapchat, social media started to explode. And so now, everybody can see everything instantaneously, and everybody can finally comment. Now they don't have to wait to see you at school. You can post a picture, and within a matter of 5 minutes, you've already got likes, comments, shares. You got all that stuff. And you don't have to wait. And I don't know any other generation that grew up with that. And I feel like the disconnect comes when you start talking to the older generation, or people who are a generation behind you who are a little bit older. They don't seem to understand that when you all were coming into adulthood, that's when social media took off. You all were coming into adulthood, or you were already adults. That's when social media started to take off. That's when bullying became rampant. That's when, people's mental health. I think that's when a lot of issues kind of started. I'm not trying to say that Gen Xers or millennials never dealt with mental health, because they did. I'm sure they did. It wasn't as widely talked about, but I'm quite sure that they dealt with it. But what I'm saying is, it's just like a lot of body image issues really started to take off, because you got now you don't just have billboards and magazines and television anymore. Now you've got social media, and you can put this image of thin is in, and anything else is not. So now you've got all these young girls out here thinking that in order for them to be in order for them to be a part of the latest trend, they have to be thin. And it's everywhere. It's on every social media platform you can think about. Now you've got that, and then they're taking this everywhere that they go. Now it's not. They don't have to wait until they get home, but they don't have to wait till they get to the checkout counter at a store to see it. It's everywhere. I think because people were seeing that bullying was a thing, that's when I think maybe schools started to take bullying a little bit more seriously and started to put zero tolerance policies in place and things like that. But I just feel like, because of this era that we're in, there is so much going on at one time, because we spend so much time on our phones. We get overwhelmed and we get bombarded with things. And there's really no way for people to hide, what's going on. And like I said, you can get hate from everywhere, from all over the world now, because of the internet and because of the advancements that we've made. And I know people like to say that we're sensitive and things like that, but also too, I think the biggest reason why I feel like we are so emotionally aware is because we were brought up in an environment or raised by parents who came from a different generation. I was raised by a Gen Xer. My mom was born in the 70s. They didn't believe in mental health. Depression wasn't a thing. My mom my mom more than likely was abused in her household, because that's how you parented children. You were the child, and the adult was the adult, your guardian was the adult, and you didn't question what they did or anything like that. And if you acted out, you got a beating. You got hit with a belt, an extension cord, a switch, a hanger, whatever they could pick up that they feel like they could beat your ass with. That's what you got. That's what it was. Now, when we were coming up, when my mom was raising us, my mom didn't whip us like that. If we were acting out in school, sure. If I didn't turn in a homework assignment, yeah. Sure. I got beatings and things, like, not beatings, but I may have got whooped with a belt. I probably got a spanking a couple times, but that's not what we got. Um, because she was like, my mom used to whoop us for every little thing, and I don't want to do that to my kids. But just because she did not physically abuse us, or just because she did not physically cause any harm to us, doesn't mean that mentally and emotionally she didn't potentially do some damage. That doesn't mean that we still. That doesn't mean that our mental health still wasn't affected in a way. Um, like, we couldn't say that we were depressed in my household, and this is a black household I'm talking about. We weren't allowed to say that we were depressed or we were stressed out or anything like that, because that didn't exist. What do you got to be stressed out about? You don't have any bills. You don't have any type of, like, responsibilities that you have. All you have to do is get your ass up and go to school and get good grades. That's it. That's not hard. It's not stressful. You know, um, there was no understanding of, oh, this is just hard and I don't understand it if we got bad grades. And you could be asking the teacher, what's going on, but it's like you don't understand How is it that you're not understanding? You ain't asking no questions. I am, but it's not clicking to me. You know what I'm saying? So that in and of itself causes a lot of mental health. It causes a lot of like stress on you. Mentally, you become drained because it's just like I'm trying, and I don't want to get good grades because I don't want to get bad grades because I don't want I don't want to suffer whatever consequences are going to come with that. So when now that we're older and we are able to recognize that as a child things happen to us that shouldn't have, and we are able to recognize that trauma, we are trying our hardest to break those curses. We are trying to go about it a different way. And for a while, mental health was, there was like this stigma, like if you were mentally ill, nobody wanted to talk about you, and people were embarrassed, to say that you were a part of their family, and they would always try to like, put you in a home or, do whatever. And it's like now, I see it all over social media. I see it everywhere. People are like, yes, I suffer with a mental illness. I have depression. I have anxiety. I have this and I have that. And people are starting to become more open. And I think that I really applaud my generation for being bold enough and brave enough to go against the societal standard of, what mental health is and what they consider to be mental health, and saying, hey, this is mental health too. And my health, my mental health, and my the way I feel and my thoughts, they matter. And I know people will say like, you have to forgive your parents for their childhood trauma, which is true. They have childhood trauma as well that they didn't deal with, and that manifested itself as an adult, and they projected that trauma onto their kids, and that's sad. But at some point, you have to stop blaming your traumas, and you have to start taking some type of accountability for the role that you played in your child being the way that they are, or for the role that you played in your child's mental health being the way that it is. And you still have parents to this day that are toxic parents. You can only have a relationship with them if it's beneficial for them, if they're getting something out of the deal. You still have parents who are, very like rude and like inconsiderate when they like, if they want to comment on something, they will tear you down before they tell you, hey, I feel like you should do it this way, or I didn't like it when you did it, instead of talking it out. I know when I got older, we had gotten to a point where we used to talk to my mom, and we would tell her like, at this point, if what we're saying hurts your feelings, then it just hurts your feelings. I am not about to sit up here, and I am not about to go, I'm not about to spare your feelings, and I'm not about to, allow you to talk to me any kind of way. Like, it's just not what it is. So I feel like we're Generation Z is not soft. We're not we're not sensitive, at least not all the time. We're not always sensitive. We're just aware of the effects that certain things and certain actions can have on your mental health, and we're doing our best, and we're trying to break these curses and trying to destigmatize mental health, and trying to define, what it is to, like, trying to normalize that, people do have mental illnesses, and there's nothing wrong with seeing a therapist. There's nothing wrong with you taking a break from something that is draining you. There's nothing wrong with you walking away from someone who does not mean or serve you well. People feel like because you are family that, you have to put up with whatever bullshit that whatever bullshit they dish out. And it's like, no, you don't. Blood isn't the only thing that makes you family. I can call people my family that I have known for forever. And to me, what makes you family is how you treat me, how you come through for me when I can't come through for myself, how supportive you are of me when I want when I have a thought or an idea that I want to try to put into action. How you're always there for me when I need just a shoulder to cry on, the way you treat me. If you treat me like I am a blood relative. That's what family is to me. And sometimes you have strangers that treat you better than, the people that you call your very own family. So, Naomi Osaka is a part of this generation who is really shaking shit up. And we've seen that a lot of the older generations, or a lot of older people, they don't like that. They would rather for things to be the way that they are, and they would rather for you to leave good enough alone. But the way that they were living, it didn't really help anybody. It did more harm than it did good, and we are trying to really like just change the narrative that surrounds a lot of different things, and mental health is one of them. Hell, sexuality is starting to become another one too, because now we're exploring what it is to be non-binary, what it is to be queer, what it is to be gender fluid, pansexual, asexual, demisexual, all these types of things. Never heard of them in my lifetime. Never heard of any of this type of stuff. I've heard of LGBT, Q, but I have never heard of all these other things that you could identify as. Never heard of it. And people are starting to become more comfortable with saying that, this is who I am. They're starting to become more comfortable with who they are. Whereas, back then, a lot of these things that are going on now wouldn't be acceptable. So I think the French Open, has kind of come out and sided with Naomi Osaka. I tried to look it up and try to find some stuff on it, and I couldn't find any. Maybe I didn't look in the right places. But what I think the lesson is here is that time and time again, you will know if a job or a person really cares about you based off of how they respond when you decide that you want to take some time for yourself. To me, the French Open doesn't give a shit about any of its players. It doesn't care about your mental health. They don't care about, you wanting to take some time for yourself. The sport comes first, and then everything else falls where it lays. You know what I'm saying? And that's not how it should be. If I'm an organization who hosts a contest for athletes, or a championship, or whatever you want to call it, for athletes, I'm not going to be concerned only about their physical health. I need to make sure that mentally they are in shape so that they can play. I need to make sure that their head is in the game. Because if your head is not in the game, then you don't need to be out here on a court, on a field, on a diamond, in the rink, wherever. You don't need to be anywhere where a sport is being played, because your game is off. You're not mentally here. You're mentally elsewhere. You're not able to focus. Emotionally, you're not where you need to be. It's Health isn't just about what you look like on the outside. It's also about how you feel on the inside, because how you feel on the inside will show itself on your outside. And it differs for a lot of people. A lot of people, it may show, they may start losing weight. They may start gaining weight. Their hair may start falling out. They may just let themselves go and not take care of their appearance. It shows itself on your outside with how you look. And I think that people really need to be mindful of that when they do the things they do and they say the things that they say. Because, like I said, you don't know what type of effect you can have on somebody. You don't know what the last thing, you don't know what will stick out in their mind that you have said. Because, like I said, everybody will have some time. Everybody has to go to sleep at night. And it's during those times when you're by yourself and you don't have anybody else with you. There's no one else around you, and you're just alone in a room, or in a space with you and your thoughts, those negative things are going to come up, and you don't know what negative thing is going to stick out to that person when they're sitting and they're having their moment of reflection. So just be nice. It costs you $0.00 to be nice. It costs you nothing to keep all your negativity and bad vibes to yourself. It costs you absolutely nothing to do so. It costs you nothing. So yeah, thank you, Genzie, for being so bold and so brave. And thank you to all of those who have, along with Genzie, acknowledged the fact that mental health is a real thing, and that it is important that you keep that in check just as well as you keep your physical health in check. Thank you for acknowledging the fact that the stigma surrounding mental health needs to be erased. And and thank you for allowing those of us who do have mental health issues. Thank you for giving us a space to address it, to talk about it, because it's needed, especially with the year that we had last year and all the things that are going on in the world right about now. Everybody needs a safe space. So to those people out there who understand that it is real, who understand that depression exists for everyone, no matter your age, to the people who are that safe space for people who struggle with depression, anxiety, with negative thoughts, all those things. Thank you. You make the world a better place to be in. You make life a little bit more manageable. So, those are my thoughts on the whole situation with mental health, and as it pertains to Naomi Osaka and what I think about it. Um, I hope that you all enjoyed this episode. I do have a YouTube channel, so you can subscribe to my YouTube. It's honestly Leah. Um, yeah, I will try to be more consistent. I'll be back whenever I have something more to talk about, something um, that inspires me. But until then, you all take care and remember that mental health is wealth.